the head football coach of Penn State football on the Mercedes-Benz Vans phone line, James Franklin. How you doing, Coach?
Good. How are you guys?
I'm doing just fine. So, what does your day look like on a draft week? What's going on in the Penn State football world writ large, James Franklin?
Yep, we just finished up spring ball on Saturday. We had our spring game Saturday afternoon. Had 65,000 people at that. Had a bunch of former players on campus. A bunch of our draft eligible guys were here as well. And now we're in a situation where our coaches have all, started the process of go on the road recruiting. And then I'm about to I sit down and meet with every single player on the team individually for about a half hour. So got about 125 meetings to knock out, which is great. You get to know your team really well, but it also is, a grind. So looking forward to doing that.
And then how much is your phone getting rung up by general manager, scouts, people who want to know about your guys last minute before the draft right now?
Yeah, it's really kind of spread out. It's over a period of time, probably for about the last month, I would say, between scouts, regional scouts, GMs, head coaches. So it's pretty spread out. You'll get some last minute calls, but for the most part, you'll get 5 or 6 a week.
All right, so I'll just walk through the front door. Any Wisconsin area code phone calls to your cell phone about Jahan Dotson? Anything straight up on that front?
I found that the last couple of years that a lot of the predictions that you hear out there, you don't really hear from them close to the draft. I don't know if they're trying to keep it quiet or not, but obviously we heard from the Packers early in the process, regional scouts and things like that. But nothing here as of recent.
First time you laid eyes on Dotson was when, Coach Franklin?
Well, obviously high school. We recruited him out of high school. He was actually playing hard to get early on. He's from here in the state of Pennsylvania. Actually, it's kind of interesting. Him and Saquon Barkley are from a similar part of the state, kind of the Bethlehem area, Lehigh Valley. But he was kind of playing hard to get and actually committed to UCLA. And then we were able to flip him back to stay home late. But was a high-level track athlete, was a high-level basketball athlete here in the state, and then a really good football player. He's just undersized. He was probably about 152 pounds when he showed up on campus.
And so when did you realize he could be special for you, Coach?
Well, he played for us as a true freshman and obviously was undersized at the time, but he just was so natural catching the ball. He's got as good a ball skills that I've been around. And I've been fortunate. I was the receivers coach for the Green Bay Packers, and I had Donald Driver. I coached Torrey Smith in college. I coached Jordan Matthews in college. At the time, was all-time leading receiver in SEC history. I coached Jordy Nelson in college, played for me at Kansas State. I had Chris Godwin. I could go on and on. I've had a bunch of wideouts, and he's probably the most natural guy I've had in catching the ball in terms of being able to contort his body. He just catches the ball effortlessly, and it really doesn't matter where, over the middle, on the perimeter. He just has got fantastic natural hands.
Well, I mean, when you mentioned Jordy Nelson, obviously Donald Driver and all the other names you mentioned. I mean, I think he still has all the records at Kansas State. I think he still holds every damn last record that they put together there. So that's some very high praise that you're putting out there.
Yeah,
Coach
Jordy,
Franklin.
when he played for me, he had 122 catches for 1,600 yards in 1 year. And then the corner from Kansas, who is being highly regarded as well coming out in the draft. I'm having a brain fart right now. But Kansas had a really good corner, and him and Jordy went up against each other. And nobody really wanted to give Jordy credit. I'll leave that, the reason why, out of it right now. But nobody wanted to give him credit, and he got after him. And I think that kind of gave him credibility. But Jahan I think, is really on that level and even higher. He's got a chance to be special.
Could that have been Aqib Talib back in the day?
That's exactly who it was. Thank you very much for helping me fill in the dots.
No problem. Yeah, I mean, that had to have been a heck of a matchup right there. What was that? So where were you in your career when you were out there back at Lambeau Field working for the Packers?
Yeah, I guess
James?
This was probably, I'm not good with stuff like this, Rich,
Right.
but it was probably 15 or so years ago. I was the receivers coach with the Packers. I'd been at the University of Maryland with Ralph Friedgen for a number of years and had an opportunity to go to Green Bay. And then I left Green Bay and went to Kansas State as the offensive coordinator. Coach Sherman had gotten let go, and I had an opportunity to go to Kansas State as the offensive coordinator. So I went there, and Jordy was there, and ended up, obviously we had a really good player, and we found every way possible to get him the ball. And everybody knew he was going to get the ball, and he still did. And kind of very similar to Jahan.
So
Jahan, everybody knew we were going to get him the ball here, and he just continued to do it week in and week out.
So did you have a front row seat to the Favre Rodgers deal? Did you have a front row seat?
Yeah,
to that?
I was there. We drafted Aaron.
Yeah.
We drafted Aaron that year. I was there with him his entire rookie year. Obviously, Brett was our starting quarterback, and Aaron was the backup. So I was able to kind of watch that whole thing. I remember sitting talking about him in the draft room and what we thought about him. So I was fortunate to be with Brett Favre, not bad, and I was there with Aaron Rodgers and the beginning of his career and watch that. And then I coached Aaron's brother, Jordan, when I was at Vanderbilt. He was my quarterback at Vanderbilt. Now he's on the SEC network.
Man, small world. James Franklin here on the Rich Eisen Show. I got to meet Micah Parsons in person, Coach, a few weeks ago, and he took my seat, literally, that I'm talking to you from. Like he wanted to ask me questions, and I got up out of my chair and sat in the guest seat. That kid, he's convincing. Let's just put it that way. When it all comes down to it.
He's got a lot of personality, and I'm really proud of him. He's come a long way. We recruited him out of Harrisburg High School, and he came here, and he just really thrived and flourished under the structure and the discipline. Graduated from Penn State in 3 years. I don't think enough people talk about that with Micah. And then obviously he's gone on to have a fantastic NFL career so far. So a lot of excitement. I'm happy for a lot of things that are happening for him off the field as well. Well,
I mean, he didn't, as we all know, play for the year before he was drafted. What do you think is going on with college football and the way maybe it makes it easier for a transition to the pros than back in the day, maybe when you were even coaching at Green Bay in 05, that 1 year you were there? I mean, because it seems that we're seeing a transition for some players be more natural than others. Coach.
Yeah, I think it's a couple things. Well, first of all, I just want to be clear. He was going to play, and the Big Ten canceled the season.
Yes.
So Micah, was not one of these guys that was going to opt out. The Big Ten canceled the season. He had signed with an agent, started training in California, and then a couple weeks later, the Big Ten changed that decision.
Right.
I just want to be clear on that.
No, we all unfortunately remember all of that.
Yeah, unfortunately, you're exactly right. But yeah, I think a couple things. I think part of it is very similar to in college, right? It's a little bit less of an old school mentality where rookies don't play and freshmen don't play. If they're good enough to play and they're talented enough to play, you better get them on the field. And I think the NFL has taken a more aggressive approach with those types of things. There's still probably some arguments at the quarterback position. What is the best way to do it? But I just think there's more of an aggressive approach when it comes to GMs and the scouting department and the coaches to say, look, this guy's talented. He may not be able to do everything, but he can do some of the things, and let's start with those things and continue to let him grow and evolve as the season goes on. And, that's kind of what I'm seeing. And, we've been fortunate to have some guys like Micah go in and be able to impact early. I think Dan Quinn did a great job as well. I spoke to Dan. I thought Dan did a great job, not only from a coaching perspective, but he did a great job with me. Dan would call me. I probably talked to him 6 times during the season where there'd be a different thing going on. He wanted to ask me my opinion on how to work with Mike and how to handle this with Micah, and could I reinforce this with Micah? And I think Dan's just got a really good understanding that it's more than just the schemes and the X's and O's. It's about how to relate to players, how to connect with players. And I know him and Dan have a really good relationship, and Dan worked at it. So, I think, Mike is one of these guys. He's going to thrive in that type of system when he's got a really good relationship with his position coach and coordinator.
Well, speaking of thriving in a system, what are your 2 cents, not to turn you into an analyst, but I'll do it anyway, the sense of Saquon in Dabol's system that he's bringing to the New York, New Jersey area? What do you think of that, James Franklin?
Yeah, I know Coach Dabol very well for a number of reasons. The owner of the Bills, Terry Pagula, is a Penn State grad, so we had that connection. His son actually is a undergraduate student at Penn State and works in our football office, so I've gotten to know him really well. I think it's got a chance to be a really good fit. And then I also, I'm a big believer, obviously, in Saquon, not only the type of player he is, but the type of man he is. So I think he's going to work well. And I think Coach Dabol is going to do a really good job of putting Saquon in the best positions to be successful in terms of what they do with the offensive line and tight ends, but also, playing to his strengths, which is getting him in space as much as possible. I think, his rookie year and here at Penn State, getting him the ball in the passing game and out in space to take advantage of his ability to make people miss and, his ability to burst and really play well in space, which I think is one of his strengths. I think he's got a chance to have a really good year. I know he's been frustrated. So there's nothing I would love to see more is to him have a great year for the Giants and Coach Dabol.
Before I let you go, Coach Franklin, I've asked this question of, let me see. I asked it of Nick Saban last week, as well as Lane Kiffin. Also, a couple of other colleagues of yours, just Jimbo Fisher at Texas A&M. Dabo Swinney said that because of the name, image, and likeness rules and the lack of, I guess, uniformity coast to coast, that there's going to be a complete blow-up and restructuring of all of college athletics, especially football, and there needs to be. Would you agree with that assessment, James Franklin?
Well, the first thing I would say, Rich, is it's no different than any other industry, right? When the rules change or the scenario changes, you better change with it. You better embrace it completely and change and adapt and evolve. So that's what we are doing. In theory, I think this rule makes total sense. And there's a lot of things that I think, we should have been looking at. We should have been making adjustments over the last, 30 years in college athletics and specifically football. What I would say is there's obvious challenges. I don't think the NCAA has done a really good job of educating the public and defending the NCAA themselves about the challenges. The NCAA has been getting beaten up over the last couple of years. And rightfully so in some circumstances, but I don't know if people truly understand the challenges that come with the model, and that's what I would say. There's going to need to be some help. There's going to need to be some, I think you used the word uniformity. I think that's going to have to happen at some point. We don't have it right now, but let's also be honest. There hasn't been uniformity, before. So it is challenging. There's no doubt about it, but we've embraced it at Penn State. We're going to move forward, but there's going to be some changes, significant changes in college athletics. I think over the next 5 years, maybe faster than that. There's a lot of talk about maybe football and basketball breaking away. But I think there's going to be some significant changes in college athletics and specifically football over the last 5 years.
But what would you want?
The next 5 years.
What would you want to see? What would you want to see? James Franklin, you could wave a wand. You're now in charge. What do you want to see? What do you want?
Well, I think at the end of the day, I think the reality is you'd like for everybody to be playing by the same rules, and you'd like for the student athletes to have the ability to take advantage of the opportunities that they have and maybe an opportunity that they may not have after college. So I think there needs to be you need to get a group of people in the room, whether that is from the government perspective, whether that is from the state's perspective, and from an NCAA perspective, and get athletic directors, commissioners in a room and say, okay, what do we need to do that's in the student athletes, and what do we need to do that's in college football's best interest? And I'm talking about it as simple as, we're trying to come up with the best teams for the college football playoffs. And some schools or some conferences are playing 8 conference games. Some are playing 9. Some are playing FCS opponents. Others aren't playing FCS opponents. There should be a standardization across college football from a scheduling perspective, from conferences. Do you have a conference championship or not a conference championship? Notre Dame sitting out on their own with independence. There needs to be more consistency across the board. I don't know how you can ask a group of people to sit in a room and come up with the 4 best teams in college football, and everybody's playing under different circumstances. So I think that's one example, but I do think across the board we need to find a way to come up with rules no different than any other league, so that you can do the best job of evaluating and making sure everybody understands the rules and everybody's playing by the same rules.
What number of playoff teams would you like? What number would you be happy with?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I really haven't had a problem with the current structure because I do think there has been a significant drop-off after maybe the top 5 teams or the top 4 teams. Mm-hmm. So I don't have a strong opinion, but I just think it needs to be consistent across the board. I think, everybody should be playing the same number of games. Everybody should be, in terms of, playing FCS opponents. Those are the things, to me, I'm more passionate about. I think you can make an argument of going to 12, but again, you don't want to get into a situation where you make these changes, but it's the same 2 or 3 teams that are winning the championship every single year. So I don't think we need to go to, what basketball has done with 65 teams and things like that. I don't think we need to do that, but I do think every major conference, their champion should be in. I do also believe if there's 2 teams from one conference, it should be the best teams in college football. And I think everybody, should have that opportunity. Obviously, the group of 5 have done some fantastic things as well, and they deserve an opportunity. So, I think by expanding a little bit, it allows you to do that. We won the Big Ten championship a few years back and didn't get into the playoffs. That's a hard pill to swallow. But, I don't think we need to go too far with it.
Coach, thanks for the time. Greatly appreciate it. Let's connect during the summer and beyond. Right. Thanks again.
You so much.
Right back at you. That's James Franklin, head coach of Penn State football. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.